talking about no bedtime. The truth is not a Google search, you need to get your head right. The Greek goddess of illusion was called Media, and I'm not a coincidence theorist, I look for thread lines. Smashing every deadline, no longer smashing red wine. Though I can hear the bells chime, it feels like the end times. That probably should have been smashed on red wine, but the carnal mind is foolish. Obey and end up ghoulish. Don't get used by instinct, take control and learn to use it. Make a load of earnest music, earn a few quid, learn a few tricks. Sure, the truth is persecuted, this whole world is pure abusive. Know a bit about everything and everything about nothing. Figured out my noggin while you picture out shopping. You sit about watching while I dish it out, stop it. I don't mean to sound cocky, I'm not even proud of it. It's a second itch to me, just to be this out honest. I don't even need to sound honest, never been about profit. Everything but out on it, you can bet your house on it. Doubt I'll be out for the count when the sounds, and I'm down for the beat, no beat down. I mean, how long's it been? Help me out. I've been the only one who's held me down. All in the mind, hell freeze now. Still sick with it, healthy how? Few bars down and the world freaked out. I don't reach out, I seek out to speak out. I'ma recount the reasons they beat out. I am not the way, no way. I have seen the way. Speak, repeat, there's no way.
Hello. Welcome to the 509 Divine Pines Podcast. I am your host, Joseph Daniel Pena, and today it is June 21st, 2023. And you know what I smell? Summer. It's getting hot, and today we got a hot conversation for you guys out there. Look, I got my boy, Charlie Robinson from the Macroaggressions Podcast, the author of Hypno Crazy, and you know him. He got me banned on YouTube. We love him over here. He is one of the most controversial men in America right now with his books, dropping bombs. Welcome, Charlie. How you doing?
Good, man. Shit, controversial. I like it. That'll work.
Dude, you're stirring the pot, man. You know?
Well, I mean, I'm talking about things that are really like uncomfortable truths, but you know, I'm not making things up. I don't have to really make anything up about it. You know, it's if it's controversial, it's like, well, you know, maybe these people are up to no good if we're pointing it out. Or does that make us bad for pointing it out? I mean, if I were making it up, that would be one thing. But if I'm just pointing out what's actually happening, it's funny that that's controversial these days because it used to be called reporting.
Information.
Now it's illegal. Now it's hate speech.
This doesn't go back, like just barely a few decades. Like this goes back a long time. Jesus himself was controversial. You know, the truth is one of those things where it's loved by the real and hated by the fake. And you know, we look at Hollywood, we look at politics, we look at a lot of the world. They say the world is a stage and it is mighty fake. So my friend, yes, truth is hated, not here, man. We love it. And you know, what we're talking about today it's very powerful. We're looking at one of America's greatest stories, Billis, Gatus, and Microsoft, and all of that, my friends. All right, guys, that is going to be our episode today. But first, go ahead and check out my sponsor over at Divine Light Codes for all your crystals. And she has a powerful healing program for everybody out there going through some things. Look, we see what's happening in America. We see what's happening in the world. You're not alone. You have people. You have support. And Sherry Ariano will give you all the love. She has elixirs too, man. Go ahead and check out Divine Light Codes and use coupon code 509 Divine Pines. Thank me later. All right. We are back. Bill Gates, man. I'm in Washington, and this dude has probably changed the whole scenario. All right. So in the 90s, I was, barely like 10 years old, 5 years old. But I remember this place was very popping with its Seattle Supersonics, its weed, its agriculture. It was just thriving. And then it started getting killed. Who is this man? we look at him like he's modern day Dr. Evil. Well, how let's go back. Let's talk about his family and this Bill Gates.
Yeah, Bill Gates' dad used to be the chairman of the board of Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is the American Eugenics Society. It was started by Margaret Sanger, who was a known eugenicist, and it was started to sort out the Negro problem. That's what she said. So just understand that's where Bill Gates comes from. His dad ran this organization. To put it in perspective, Margaret Sanger's work was the work that was cited by the Nazis to start the forced sterilization and euthanasia programs that they implemented first inside Germany and then external. And then, as you know, with all of the prisoners that they killed, the justification for that came from the work of Margaret Sanger in the legalization of forced sterilization, starting in Indiana and eventually really manifesting in California. And the Nazis used that as the case law to get it legalized in Germany. So you just understand that, like, all of the bad stuff you think of when you think of the Nazis, they got that idea from Margaret Sanger, and Margaret Sanger handed the torch to Bill Gates Sr. So
they were
we
a
have
big
some context for who this guy's dad is. His dad is no good.
They were a big problem, I guess, now with the pharmaceutical and the biomedical technology, right? Of the last 100 years.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Margaret Sanger was deeply involved in that. Planned Parenthood was involved with it. It was part of a depopulation agenda. They've set them all up, and 80% of the stores are set up in low income neighborhoods. So it's sort of, there's obviously an agenda behind it. And then you look at what Bill Gates is doing, and you look at Bill Gates Sr., and he was deeply involved with politics in not just Planned Parenthood, but also politics in Washington, D.C. He was friends with all these big Kissingers and all these guys, all these hardcore, like, OG depopulationists. And so he's in that group. And this is the next generation. His son, Bill Gates, the one that we know, the tech nerd from Microsoft who wears a sweater, and he's a geek. And he dances like shit, and so he's trustworthy because he's rich, and he's not a doctor, but he knows more about medicine because he's smart, and so nobody questions this guy. And he's borrowed an old tactic of the Rockefellers. If you think of Bill Gates' family like the Rockefellers, one of the things that happened with the Rockefellers is they got into a lot of trouble. They got into antitrust with the government, and they had some bad PR. They had a mine where they had a bunch of miners. They got into a big firefight, and they murdered a bunch of their workers. It's really bad, right? And so after that, they started the Rockefeller Foundation and used that as an investment vehicle and a PR machine that would whitewash their public image. And it would say, hey, look at all this charity work we're doing, and look at what good people this Rockefeller family is. Well, Bill Gates went through the same thing. Microsoft gets into antitrust issues, and then we start to have big problems with his personal life. Microsoft is regarded as being really predatory in their behavior. And next thing you know, Bill Gates starts the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and uses that, puts a bunch of money into that, and then uses that to do some charity work, but mostly deflecting criticism away from Bill Gates and putting out PR about how great they are and how they're saving the world. So they're following a very predictable pattern. Bill Gates is following, in this regard, the Rockefellers. Okay. So you've got these sort of parallels. What's interesting as well is that I mentioned that it's like Bill Gates Sr., original OG depopulationist, right? Bill Gates Jr., nerdy Bill. He's in this generation. The next generation of depopulationists, Mark Zuckerberg. You want to know what's interesting about Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates? Tell me if you can tell the difference, which origin story I'm talking about. Nerdy freshman in his dorm room at Harvard starts a transformational software company with stolen technology, winds up becoming a multi-billionaire and getting his philanthropy involved in all sorts of nefarious left-leaning organizations. Who am I talking about? Am I talking about Bill Gates or am I talking about Mark Zuckerberg? Because they have the exact same origin story. Because it's all part of an operation.
And I would, just to tie in a quick note between Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates stealing or getting their technology. This is CIA. We know that LifeLog was handed directly over to
Right.
Mark Zuckerberg the day of it being shut down and
Right.
Facebook being started. Now, if we look at Microsoft, its original location was maybe 60 to 90 miles away from Roswell, where the UFOs were supposedly crashed down. And, it's interesting that Roswell was, it happened around the same time the CIA was created. There's a lot to talk about there. Now,
Microsoft got a lot of their software from IBM. IBM, it was a subsidiary of the Nazis. Okay, so they were deeply involved with the Nazis, and that Nazi technology, World Economic Forum group is the Fourth Reich, so it would make sense that we would have Nazis passing on technology, but that's sort of what Bill Gates is doing. This is the Fourth Reich. They talk about the Fourth Industrial Revolution. I wish Jim Mars were alive right now, because I'd love to hear his take on all of this, because he's talked about how the Fourth Reich is coming back, but it's not going to be Goose stepping down the Champs-Elysees. It's going to be wearing $5,000 Brooks Brothers suits, and that's what this Fourth Reich is. It's the World Economic Forum, man. And it's crazy.
So did Bill Gates start off the most evil man, or where did he turn wrong? Or has he always been like this?
His mother was deeply involved with IBM. His mother was a mover and shaker in the Seattle business community. And so she had this access to IBM. And that's what he wound up becoming, sort of like a front company for intelligence. I mean, that's really what Microsoft is. It's the second largest corporation in the world right now in terms of market cap. It's a $2 trillion company. It's fucking huge. Okay. So he's in charge of the mothership. Okay. He's in charge of a business that is so big that it's like some of these other businesses put together times 10. People don't realize how big this company is. And so Bill Gates has access to so much money, but it's more than that, because he's now been able to pool his resources with Warren Buffett, who's contributed $31 billion. He's the chairman CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, who's worth $100 billion himself. He's donated $31 billion to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for them to use on God knows what. So, well, we know what, but I mean, that's a lot of money to play with. That's the sort of money that you can put just about any nefarious plan into action, because money is quite literally no object. You just write the check. It's done.
And he is involved with Mr. Epstein. Husky right here says, well, he's dead.
Yeah, exactly. He's dead.
Who else was Bill Gates in association with? For all my viewers out there that are new to
this. He was in association with Nathan Myhrvold, who's one of the chief technology officer of Microsoft, who's a notorious pedophile, and has been to Epstein's Island 1 million times. And that was Bill Gates' partner. It's like Bill Gates, Paul Allen, Steve Ballmer and Nathan Myhrvold, like number 4 at Microsoft is I mean, dude, there's a lot of, I mean, I don't know if you recall, but like about a dozen years ago, there's a very unusual incident that happened at Bill Gates' house. A computer technician that was working on
yeah.
Bill Gates' house, that's what they kind of left it, was busted with all of this child porn on a laptop. And you go, I want to give this guy the benefit of the doubt since we're talking about child porn, right? But like, help me understand what is happening here. Like, nobody ever made an explanation about that. I think that guy wound up going to jail, but it was like, what is that guy doing in Bill Gates' house? I think it's a reasonable question. The answer could be that Bill Gates knew absolutely nothing about it. Absolutely possible. But like, if somebody ever got arrested in your house with child pornography on their computer, that would be something that you would never, ever forget, right? But like, we're supposed to pretend like that didn't happen. That's a really, really unusual thing to have happen at the richest guy in the world's house. Allegedly richest guy.
There is a whole lot of speculation, these days that these sex trafficking and child pornography charges are occultic by nature. When you look at a lot of Bill Gates and his ideologies, does he have some occultic aspirations in him?
Well, that luciferase patent is 60606.
Yeah.
That's for real. It sounds fake, but I went and checked because it sounded so fake. I was like, I can't be saying this if it's not real. I went and looked it up and I was like, I'll be damned, it is real. It really is. It is that. And I was like, well, these guys, they're such shitheads. You just know that they just get off on that. We're gonna make it 60606. Like, I don't have, like, to me, I don't go, oh shit, it's the devil or anything. And I don't get all bent out of shape, but it just annoys me because they're doing it on purpose, just to be jerky, and just to kind of give us the middle finger, and it's disrespectful.
Yeah,
because Bill Gates is trying to kill everybody. I mean, in case I'm not being clear enough on this. This guy he has been buying up all of the farmland in the United States. He is the largest individual shareholder of Monsanto stock. Monsanto invented genetically modified organisms, GMO food. And as a subset of that, they invented a product called Roundup made from a substance called glyphosate. And glyphosate is super fucking poisonous. Okay. It's really bad for you. They're now having the class action lawsuits on daytime TV. If you've been injured by glyphosate, please call the law offices, blah, 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 And so it's like, it's a big deal now. This is what Monsanto does. So Bill Gates is involved in owning the farms, owning Monsanto to the extent that he can. He's investing in synthetic meat. He's investing in synthetic breast milk. And he's financed the Svalbard seed vault in Norway, 1,100 kilometers south of the North Pole, 400 feet up a mountain, and 300 feet into the mountain is a vault with millions and millions and millions of organic seeds hidden away from you and me. So, and it's financed by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, Syngenta, which is like Monsanto, and the Norwegian government. Fuck you people. How dare you? Take those seeds and hide them away from us, and then buy up all the farmland, and then use all the genetically modified crops and all the Roundup on our food. This is the thing about Bill Gates, is that he spends hundreds of millions of dollars a year on media, giving it to media organizations. So if you start to get dependent on that Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation money coming in to support your work, it's really hard to write the article about what a horrible human being he is, because that money will stop coming in. That's why nobody writes bad articles about Bill Gates. Not because he's not a bad guy, but because he is paying them to not write those articles. And it's not my speculation. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has to list all of the places they donate the money. They list it all there. It's not debatable. It's in their tax filings. Like, this is what they give $350 million a year to the media to shut them. $1 million a day they give to the media to shut them up. Make sure they go, don't talk about what we're doing. Don't talk about the World Health Organization. Don't talk about Gavi. Don't talk about what's going on in India with us, with our vaccines over there. We don't want you talking about that. Just don't talk about Jeffrey Epstein. Well, he's dead. So this is how it works. This is why Bill Gates doesn't get the bad press. Not because he's not a bad guy, but because he shields himself by throwing $1 million every single day at the whore prostitutes in the mainstream media.
And lately, one thing has sure been ignored. It's like we kind of forgot about how much he's after the genetics of the world, from the plants to our genetics. And when he had his best friend, ex-best friend, Jeffrey Epstein, and his wife, Ghislaine Maxwell, their connections, the Maxwell connections, it's a very interesting thing. You look at the security details that they had access to the world's logins and credentials. They had access to a lot of the security networks, so he had access to everybody's information. He now is using it to implement his own genetic programming. I would say that his depopulation effort is at warp speed. Donald Trump. Huh.
Well,
Right.
you want to hear a crazy story about what Epstein was working on? This is so wild. I mean, it's kind of got a Bill Gates
Give it
vibe
to me,
to it.
because I actually have, I think that Epstein was a lot smarter than everybody knows.
He was working with a guy named Ben Goertzel, and Ben Goertzel built the Sophia robot. Do you remember the Sophia robot that got citizenship in Saudi Arabia a couple years ago?
Yeah, I know Ben Goertzel. He had a podcast
Singularity
with
Net.
he had a podcast with Andre Exertus. It was very interesting. The Ben Goertzel created some robots, and I love these videos because you can see that there's actually some real consciousness in these robots.
And he built that. So he built that Sophia doll, the one that got citizenship in Saudi Arabia. She had a shaved head, but you kind of see almost like the circuits on the back of her head. Well, then Ben Goertzel, after doing that, he then took a bunch of money from Jeffrey Epstein and built the little Sophia, which was a doll that was 14 inches high that was targeted at 10-year-old girls for, quote, emotional intelligence support. And it was rigged with cameras and microphones and geolocations and all kinds of crazy things. So that's what was going on with Epstein towards the very end. He was financing AI robot projects that would be tied with little girls that you could basically use like some sort of weird menu for pedophiles, where you could just know what you wanted, because the camera broadcasting out of the eyeball of the little Sophia doll sitting in that girl's bedroom is going to tell all these predators where their prey is. So that's kind of the direction that he was going. And that's crazy, of course.
This is Westworld. From everything that I have heard, the HBO's Westworld is loosely based on Zorro Ranch, which I would believe Bill Gates has visited.
That's Epstein's New Mexico ranch, where he wanted to donate all his sperm and make all these pods where they could grow humans. He was really, Epstein was really interested in evolutionary dynamics. And this gets you into, this is like a fancy way of talking about like eugenics, sort of the science behind it. When you're talking about evolutionary dynamics, like how can we, like what happens if we push on this part of society? What will that do? And so he was partnered up with a bunch of guys in Harvard, and he was donating a bunch of money to guys like Martin Nowak, who was running the evolutionary dynamics division of Harvard. And they were talking about this, and this freaks me out because whenever you find these one world government scumbags like Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein, you always find depopulation. And when you're talking about Bill Gates, you're talking about depopulation. So again, it's just, it's a mentality that they have, which is, if we're going to take over this world with 8 billion people on it, allegedly, then it would be a whole lot easier if there were only 1 billion people. So how do we thin the herd out and get rid of all these people? And so that's sort of like an underwriting philosophy that they all share. Like, we're taking up too much space on their planet, and they would like 7/8 of us to just leave or die or starve or whatever. So once you understand and kind of come at it from what they want, like once you know that they want you dead, it starts to make a whole lot more sense. When Bill Gates is talking about very enthusiastically talking about pushing this vaccine and making sure that it gets out to as many people as he can. And he's saying, I just like, we just take these kids and we just inject it into them. We just shoot it right into them. I don't know if you've heard that clip where he's just gleeful and in talking about shooting it into the kids. And if your mindset is, oh, he's trying to help the kids, then you see it totally different. If your mindset is, this is the guy that's trying to murder everybody. Remember, his whole family's talking about murdering and depopulating everybody. His dad ran the eugenics program, took it over for Margaret Sanger, who gave it to the Nazis. This guy, once you start, then you go, oh, this video clip of him enthusiastically wanting to jab children with the vaccines makes perfect sense. He's trying to kill them. He wants everybody dead. He's a eugenicist. That's their thing, So we got to get honest about that, and so like, if America is going to have this honest conversation, they need to wake up to like what reality is. And reality is that out there, a lot of times those philanthropists, billionaires, that's a facade. It's covering for a darker agenda. And Bill Gates is not the only one. I got news for people. It's like, he's just one of many, and he's just playing his role, but he's not the biggest fish, and he's not the only guy involved in this whole thing. And so, it's a team effort.
Speaking about him partnering up and being a team, I was just looking back, he was very predictive with these vaccines. His TED Talks in 2018, or the 2010s, it was like he was just letting the world know what his plans were. Has this been something that he's always been involved with, or did he barely get into medicine just recently?
Well, he got involved in it more so after he left Microsoft. Once he transitioned out and went into Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation full time, then he got deeper involved in the vaccine agenda, and he started doing TED Talks about that. But he's also on the record saying that he expects a 10x or 20x return on his investment into vaccines. So this isn't some altruistic endeavor either. Even if you believe that he's trying to do well, like do the right thing, which he's not, but even if you believe that he is, just know that he's also openly trying to make money from this too. So of course he's going to talk to you about how you need to get the vaccine, and of course he's going to scare the shit out of you with Event 201. they're going to create these events. This is why these guys have predictive advanced knowledge of it, not because they're Nostradamus, but because they're making it happen. That's why that's how the process works, is that they know it's going to happen because they've put it on the calendar, and then they're going to do it. And that's why Bill Gates knew that COVID was coming, because Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was one of the 3 co-chairs of the Event 201 that happened in October of 2019 before COVID, simulating the outbreak of a novel coronavirus that sweeps the galaxy.
Let's talk about Event 201.
Yeah.
How big was it? How many people were participating? Because I believe
200.
Carnegie. I mean, the university. Carnegie was also involved. Who else?
Oh, a ton of people were involved. The CIA was involved. The Chinese version of their CIA was involved. It was the parts of our media were involved. It was there were 200 people there. It was a massive event. I mean, there were 200 people watching. So it was a live event. They filmed it. It was on their website. You can watch it. It's hours long. So you see that they have this is sort of a common theme with a lot of this stuff. Advanced knowledge, simulations that go live, simulations that happen, and then 6 months later the almost identical thing happens, and it gets announced by the same people, the same way, the same, so like you can only see that so many times before you start going, this is being made to happen. So Event 201 was financed by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and it simulated COVID 6 months before COVID, like down to like the answer being the only cure was a vaccine. I mean, it was like it got to the end and it was like the only cure was the vaccine, but it was like shuts down airports, and we have to make these tough decisions in this role playing exercise, and then they had their dress rehearsal right there for it. So. And then Bill Gates comes out and says, wait till the next one, that'll get their attention. And you go, well, he did know about the first one, so it's reasonable to think that he knows about the second one too.
He just talks. So all of this, what we've been talking about, guys, for all my viewers out there, we're kind of painting the picture. Now, this Event 201, this was kind of taken from Operation Lockstep by Rockefeller. Yeah. Now, they all have their own ties. They all have their own, little hands, but they're all connected to a web. This web is the New World Order. How is Bill Gates a main proponent in the New World Order?
It's the octopus.
Hey, shout out the octopus of global control, and shout out Charlie Robinson.
It's the octopus. Bill Gates is playing his part. He's the tech billionaire guy. He's the vaccine guy. That's his role. He's good at it. He's had a lot of practice being rich and powerful, and he knows how to manipulate people, and he's a great bridge player, and that requires a strategic thinking, and he's a eugenicist though. Like he can give as much money away as he wants to good causes, which he doesn't, but he could. But his ideology is that he wants to get rid of people. He wants to covertly sterilize people. And I just can't get on board with it. Would be one thing if you're just like, I want to give these women the opportunity to get to get their tubes tied or whatever. I want to give them the opportunity for birth control. whatever, that's fine. But he's paying people, he was financing the covert sterilization of people, of women, for years and years and years and years. Right. So like, that's automatic disqualification, man. If you're secretly sterilizing people, making it so that a woman just never has the opportunity to have a kid, that might be like her lifelong dream. And they did that to hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Kenyans, Filipino women, Mexicans, through the World Health Organization. They got busted. They got busted in court. They got found. They had to admit it. They had to admit they'd been doing it for a decade. You know what I mean? And Bill Gates was financing it. And he got busted in India doing the same thing. You know, so like, how many examples of this guy's behavior do you have to see before people realize this money he throws around for media cover is just a smokescreen? It's just designed to make him look good, because what he's doing is absolutely diabolical, man. Covertly sterilizing hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of women. What a shithead.
He's banned from India, and I think parts of Africa are working on that, banning him. He's caused a lot of issues. Now, when we're looking into the future, what we're seeing is the CBDC, which we know Microsoft and Bill Gates also is a proponent of. The hot topic right now is the Fed coin and the Unicoin, and what the IMF has involved themselves with. Is Bill Gates one of these guys that's kind of just, kind of slyly slid his little snake little scales through, and he's pushed for the CBDC slightly, right? Because it was that Microsoft patent that all of our actions can be tracked by nanotechnology and turned into cryptocurrencies. Am I correct with that?
Yeah, it was going to measure like the energy that you generate and pay you in cryptocurrencies or something crazy like that. Some of those patents, I think they just lock them up out there just in case. I don't know. But look, the central bank digital currencies are no joke. Like, this is really the end of civilization if these things get implemented, because you think the government's bad with their money? Think how bad they're going to be with your money. Because they're going to have access to it, man. It's programmable, and they get to program it. So if you want to save your money, you can't, because they could set a timer on it, have it expire in 365 days, So when Klaus Schwab says you'll own nothing, that's because you'll never be able to save up enough money to buy anything. And they'll have you on a rental schedule forever. That's their plan. That's not my plan. That's their plan. They talk about it. That's part of the Build Back Better, you'll own nothing thing. So like a central bank digital currency with money that loses its value over a specified period of time creates forced velocity, and it creates forced spending. Of course you're going to spend it because otherwise it expires and you get nothing for it, right? So it's behavior modification. If you get on it can be used a variety of ways. One of the ways they dream of it being used is the World Economic Forum wants to have all of these corporations that are part of ESG, environmental, social, and governance. They want these corporations to be basically like the company store. And if you can imagine a world in which the central bank digital currency that your government gives you each month, the free money, the universal basic income, comes to you in a central bank digital currency, but you can only use it at the company store. And the company store consists of all of these woke corporations that are working on ESG for the World Economic Forum, and you can only shop there. So they have to have the right number of pride parades, and they have to have the correct number of one-legged Eskimo transgendered midgets on their boards of directors. And they've got to have the right, they can't have too many white people working there. They've got to have their ESG score high enough. And so all of this stuff is going to create this weird dystopian, not capitalistic, but like socialist hellscape where you can only use the free money at the stores that you're going to be ideologically opposed to anyway. So, and if you don't use it there, it'll disintegrate and turn into dust in like 30 days or 365 days or whatever. Man, like just use your imagination when you think of stupid government and programmable money. Just anything is possible, honestly.
We see these programs being implemented everywhere. Many countries has resolved to cryptocurrency, CBDC, all of this. Now we're now looking into Saudi Arabia and many other places for 1 minute cities. This is where all of our dreams and aspirations get crushed. This because look, we just talked about Bill Gates and his family's 70-year program of depopulation, eugenesis. It's led up to what the World Economic Forum wants with the New World Order. They have us in a fear state. They pretty much sterilized the world, and now they're about to control and trap with the CBDC, these 1 minute cities. Is there any type of hope that we can have as far as, where in the world is this free? Like, where can we find freedom?
Well, not in the United States for much longer. I mean, the way it's going right now, it's over. It has been slated for destruction. It's about to change dramatically. It's being softened up.
We look at San Francisco. Yeah. It's a wreck. Portland.
It's a shithole.
Wreck.
Yeah.
New York.
New York is a mess as well. And I'm no Republican, but let's be honest. What's the common denominator? They're all Democrat-run cities: Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, Chicago, New York City, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia. All Democratic cities, all shitholes currently. Lawless, so like, unfortunately, I feel like there's a widening of this divide in the United States right now between people that are like, would have never considered themselves conservatives before, but in contrast to this crazy hardcore left nonsense, they appear massively conservative, but they always just thought they were kind of in the middle. Like there is an agenda to undermine the country by destroying it from the inside with this crazy ideology. And it's starting in these big cities, and it's being done by design. It's George Soros in there financing woke district attorney weirdos that refuse to prosecute anybody for crimes, like Chesa Bowden in San Francisco, who wound up getting recalled. And all the guy in Philadelphia, Larry Krasner in Philadelphia, who refuses to prosecute anybody. So if you destroy the cities, you destroy the morale of the country. And if you destroy the morale of the country, it's easier to take down the American empire in the end. And that's what Berwick and I wrote about. And that's kind of like, that's sort of our thesis on that, is that like the way you take down an actual building is that you pre-weaken it from the inside. You snip some support columns that aren't going to make the whole thing come down, but you just cut them now so you can use less dynamite. And that's kind of what we've been going through in America, is this pre-weakening where they just soften us up from the inside, cut a beam there, support column there, and next thing you know, we're just kind of weaker. Our core is less sturdy. And then that big economic collapse comes and we all go down. That's, in my opinion, where they're taking us. So,
and this is
strap
all
in,
a Nazi's dream. Klaus Schwab himself is, a Nazi. Well, it's debatable.
Well, his father was.
Yeah.
His father's company, Esser Wesch, was designated as one of the Nazis' preferred vendors in Switzerland.
And so these guys all fund each other. They make plans with each other. 100-year-old plan, pretty much. This is, nothing new. They wanted a new world order.
Oh yeah. No, I did. When you hear it, when the first couple times you hear somebody talk about the new world order, it sounds like conspiracy theory and you want to roll your eyes. But then, I'd like to remind people that George H.W. Bush, the first Bush president, he was in office from 88 to 92, 4 years. In that 4 years in office, he mentioned the New World Order 200 times in public during speeches. Okay, so it's not a hidden thing. Alex Jones didn't come up with the name for it. It's not what we call them. It's what they call themselves, the New World Order. That's what they call themselves. So that's when people initially come to that, they roll their eyes and go, get out of here, that conspiracy nonsense. It's like, no, hang on. We're not calling them that. That's what this is David Rockefeller on page 405 of his autobiography, saying that he stands guilty, is charged, and freely admits that they want a one world government. In his autobiography, you know what I mean? So again, it's like people go, stop saying that. Stop saying, I'm not saying it. He's saying it. I'm just saying that. I'm just showing you where he said it, So I don't know, man. It's always been an idea for these people. It's always been sort of like a concept. They want a one world government. Cecil Rhodes, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, the Queen, all they've always wanted it. No, it's no denying that, but it's never been really possible before, to actually do it like it is now. And now I think these people think that they're going to have not one world government necessarily, but a one world governance where it's just sort of regional areas that manage each other, and with an overall structure that sort of manages the regions. So you don't have to fold it all into one big one world government, but you do have, you'll group it up bigger than the euro, big chunks, and manage it that way. And so it'll be a form of world government, but it'll be like lots of little pockets of it. So that's sort of where we're headed, and that's where the World Economic Forum would like to take us. And so the problem is that the best time for them to make a move like this is during a catastrophe where they offer the savior, right? And if we know anything about these scumbags, it's that they don't sit around waiting for catastrophes to happen. They tend to want to make them themselves. They're a little impatient in that sense. So they're going to make a catastrophe. The problem, reaction, solution model of let's just, wouldn't it be awful if there was a huge earthquake and then you go, why don't we make an earthquake? You know what I mean? They're not going to sit around and wait for Mother Nature to do its thing. They're going to create a catastrophe, and then in the wake of that, grant themselves emergency powers that will allow them to remove more of our rights and increase more of their control. And they can just do that incrementally for the next 30 years and just continue to do that, medical martial laws and things like that. And then in the next thing, the next generation of kids will grow up in a world where they'll just have always had less freedoms. And that's what I think is the most depressing component of this, is that I don't think the people that are born after us are going to have the same experiences that we've had so far. I think they're going to have less privacy and less freedom, and I feel really sorry for them about that. I have an 11-year-old, and I don't envy the weird world she's going to grow up in, where I don't know. It's just kind of a crazy time right now.
Looking into the future, it's definitely one of those question marks. I myself have been looking into why all these vaccines are the way they are, and Elon Musk's name pops up, and NASA's name pops up. I do know that Bill Gates is also tied with this. It's just the end game. I firmly believe that they want to take us off planet. They want to be able to change our DNA in such a way that we aren't the normal human. That Ray Kurzweil said that we should be biologically meshed with technology here by 2030. I think that they're trying to strip away this human creativity. It's the 100-year plan for eugenics. Well, what's one thing that has to be tackled? It's not just the human productivity, the sexual productivity. It's also the spiritual productivity, the spiritual creativity. They've tapped in, and they're really morphing us into who they want us to be. As you said, like, the future generations are not going to have the same freedoms, the same lives, the same looks or creativity that our past generations have. Everything is now like 5G signals are being put into people. What do you think? Like, where are we headed with all of this? Why do you think that Bill Gates has been so desperately active in pushing this worldwide vaccine when we know that
let's think, what does Bill Gates invest in? He's invested in Monsanto. What does Monsanto do? Genetically modified seeds that they own the patents on. They make a lot of money on the seed patents. They're terminator seeds, which means that they destroy themselves after the first use. You can't reuse them. So, and then the Roundup that they sell to maintain that. Now we get to the fourth industrial revolution, the World Economic Forum. That's what they're talking about. What they want, their goal is the fourth industrial revolution. That is a blending of man with machine. When you blend man with machine, do you not become just one deviation less human? Do you become a genetically modified organism? Because if you do, then theoretically they could patent you. Bill Gates knows a thing or two about that because he's deeply involved with Monsanto, and they like to own the patents on genetically modified seeds. I bet Bill Gates would like to own the patents on genetically modified humans. So that's where my mind goes with all of this, to be honest with you, because I don't think it's the idea of the fourth industrial revolution, once again, this isn't me saying I think that that's what the World Economic Forum wants. This is what they say. They say we want the fourth industrial revolution. And then you say, what is that? And they say that is transhumanism. That is the blending of man with machine. So when you blend man with machine, you become one deviation less human. And as soon as you do that, then now all of a sudden, let me ask the question, is it not reasonable to start asking, does this new photocopied version of a human being have the same rights as a regular human, or no rights at all? Can you buy them, sell them, trade them, shoot them in the head, throw them in the garbage? Are they slaves? Are they human slaves? Because they're not technically human. So human rights don't apply to them. They're something other. Maybe that's why we're so focused on genders all of a sudden. Maybe we're going to be focused on whether or not we're actually humans. Are we trans human?
You know, this technology is going to make it so much easier for the eugenics program to happen. If your body can now have a signal to be like, oh, you are allowed to have a baby. It's
I'll take it a step further. The term transhumanism was coined by Julian Huxley. Julian Huxley was the head of the British Eugenics Society. His brother Aldous Huxley wrote Brave New World.
that is where
He's the guy that came up with the concept of transhumanism. And the reason why he came up with it was because he said we need a different name for eugenics because eugenics has a bad reputation. So they rebranded eugenics under Julian Huxley. His idea was to rebrand it as transhumanism. So when you hear that the World Economic Forum's main goal is the fourth industrial revolution, and that the fourth industrial revolution is transhumanism, and you know that Julian Huxley rebranded eugenics as transhumanism, it's the World Eugenics Program. That's what the World Economic Forum is. That's what they're doing. It's the World Eugenics Program.
We are being turned into cyborgs. Looking at half of the world right now, I would say that they're under a occultic, spiritual, multidimensional spell, where we see a lot of lost souls, and we see a lot of people who are doing freakish things. Giannis, LeBron, you know, these I would imagine that some of these people, these top tier athletes, they have some type of, you know, superhuman stuff happening inside of them. Is this where we're going? Some Space Jam, some dissidents. You know, they're really controlling people from inside out. They're making people who they want to be. I know the mRNA can actually tap in and change you to exactly what pattern it wants it to be. They can create you to be whatever they want. As Elon Musk said, you could turn into a butterfly.
Yeah, man, that these guys have they have the ability to get into some really dangerous science. You know, like the CRISPR technology has only been around for like 10 years, man, and that's like off the shelf gene editing. And whenever you start talking about editing genes and doing things like that, that's what these eugenics programs were deeply involved with as well. And I get a really bad feeling about that 23andMe stuff. You know, 23andMe, who's asking you want to find out where your genetic tree, what your genetic history is, and you go, oh, who ran 23andMe? And you're like, oh, it's one of the Wojcicki sisters. You know, her sister runs YouTube. And it's the one who's in charge of banning everybody. You know, they're in the eugenics game as well. They're collecting all your information from her 23andMe program, which is financed by Google. So like you have to be careful nowadays. You know, like you have to evolve, and you have to be like smart enough and know that you're leaving, like to not fall into these traps of signing up for like ancestry.com, because you don't know what you may think nothing bad is going to happen with that, and hopefully nothing bad does happen, but it's like you don't even want to know the capability of the things they can do with that genetic information from a person. Holy shit.
Tell us, my friend, because I have some conspiracies that they are cloning humans.
They can do quite a bit in the
Hey, we go deep
cloning
here on the 509
programs
Divine
that
Pine.
people.
I'm ready.
There's
Let's go.
There's a lot of people that have talked about the cloning programs, and man, I'll tell you, the first 10 times or so you hear it, it sounds really bonkers. Well,
No, I'm all for it.
Let me rephrase that. It always sounds crazy. It never stops sounding crazy, but like the places that these guys have gone they never stopped with there we go. They never stopped with Joseph Mengele and these guys from these Nazi scientists. I mean, these guys stayed working in the government, coming up with crazy ideas and doing crazy shit. So, like, we have a hard time understanding where a lot of this technology is going, but cloning is definitely something we know about. Dolly the sheep, that was 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I think, when they cloned the first sheep, or when they announced that they cloned the first sheep. So this research, man, it has a ton of money behind it, a ton of money. It's a big money maker for them. So there's a whole lot of stuff that the public doesn't know about. And the idea that they're cloning human beings, I think at some point that concept will become a little bit more normalized. And I think people will start to understand that there are programs that are experimental in nature that are doing crazy shit, including trying to clone humans, for sure. We know about chimeras and things like that. Alex Jones has been screaming about them for 30 years. They're making pigs. Blending pigs with dogs.
You mentioned 23andMe, and this all
Yeah.
dates far back, man. So if Rockefeller, National Geographic, the Smithsonian, Bill Gates, all of these dudes, these bigwigs are all really kicking it in the bigwig party. We're looking at minorities and we're looking at DNAs. I would say that what we're seeing is that a targeting of DNA, a targeted of
bioweapons. Yeah.
Yes.
I had Dr. Robert Malone on, and we talked about that, about the mRNA technology, and I asked him about it, and he said it's great when you inject it in and you turn it on, it starts making these spike proteins like it's supposed to do it, and it does a really good job of doing it. But there's a flaw in the design, is that when you turn it on, you can't ever turn it off. It just keeps making and making and making. And I said, well, that sounds like a really bad design flaw. Who would ever ask you to build something like that? And he said, the US military, of course. So there are targeted bioweapons. We know about that. That's just stuff that the casual news consumer hasn't heard about yet, but we've known about it for a while. You know what I mean? Targeted bioweapons has been a thing. They've been dreaming of it for 50 years, but as far as being able to do, I mean, listen, man, what are we talking about in Ukraine? What are we talking about with the dozen plus bioweapons in Ukraine? These laboratories that are going on there. Are we talking about trying to target certain ethnic groups? Because America can't do that on American soil, because that's illegal. But you can do it in a shitbox country like Ukraine, where you just bribe everybody and basically hollow it out and run it yourself and build all these biolabs to do God knows what. I mean, is that an unreasonable question to ask? What's going on in the biolabs? Are you making genetically targeted weapons? I don't think that's unreasonable to ask that question, given the fact that they're trying to pretend like they don't exist.
I do see two sides to this coin with what you're saying. In Ukraine, there's been a lot of speculation, my friends, about super soldiers, lab-created super soldiers over there in Ukraine. And this isn't nothing new. China has said they want to create lab-created super soldiers. America has said they want to create a lab-created super soldiers. France has said the same thing. Many countries are using CRISPR to genetically modify soldiers to enhance their abilities. Now, the other side of this is how what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years is really targeting spiritual families, spiritual bloodlines. I constantly reference this. The History Channel and National Geographic and them, they were searching for the bloodline of Jesus, the 12 tribes, the bloodline of Adam. Now, if we're looking at what we've seen over the last few years, a true attack on spirituality, It's the 509 Divine Pines podcast. I have to hit on the divine note every time. This is a battle of good versus evil, dark versus light, Bill Gates versus God, and Rockefeller versus God. Like, there's no other way to say it. They want darkness. Am I right, Charlie? I mean, I'm not the soft Christian Catholic thumper. I go to a Christian church. I was raised Catholic, but I'm a firm believer in God, and I smoke weed, and I believe, some crazy things. But hey, this is real.
But you've never sat around plotting genocide. Even no matter what you've done, no matter what bad thing you think you've done, you've never sat around plotting how to kill over 1 billion people. You never gave a TED talk about talking about how you could reduce the population by about 10 or 15%, like Bill Gates did, talking about getting rid of over 1 billion people. So like you get a free pass. These MFers do not. This is Nuremberg style trials that have to happen for this COVID group. There is, or else you lose all control of society after this. If you get to a point where everybody just knows that these people tried to kill a huge population of the world and nothing was done to them, there's no accountability for the Bill Gateses of the world, these people, then people start to lose hope. They either lose hope or they say, I'm not paying attention to any laws, and they become really disruptive and hard to deal with. So like we need to have accountability. There is no amnesty policy for the people that perpetrated COVID. They were so disgusting when they were doing it. They knew what they were doing. The Bill Gates crew, but here's the thing is that like, I knew what Bill Gates was doing 10 years ago. And so because I understand what he's doing in Africa with his vaccine plan, the COVID involvement wasn't anything out of the ordinary. I already knew who he was and that he was up to no good. The thing is that like, I think the general public is just now starting to figure that out. Like that Bill Gates is not a good guy, whereas you and I have known it for a long, long time. We knew it pre-COVID. And so we didn't need like a refresher course on who Bill Gates was. We knew he was a scumbag beforehand. So when you see him again, you go, that's a bad guy. That guy's not to be trusted at all. So that's Bill Gates, and people just need to understand that he's not going to stop. He's a Henry Kissinger type person. He's the type of guy that's going to be doing this till he's 100 years old in the wheelchair, getting pushed around like Henry Kissinger. So, like, if you don't hold this guy accountable, you're going to get the next 30 years of this.
We as a Earth society, all of us, we're looking at ourselves, but then we're looking at the planet and seeing it's being hurt too. He wants to block out the sun. Bill Gates wants to block out the sun. Microsoft.
Straight out of The Simpsons.
This is 100% all for the World Economic Forum. They want us dead.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they do. They've talked about it openly in their books. The Club of Rome has written books about this called The Limits to Growth, where they mention how they're going to use the concept of global warming as the pretext to create a global carbon tax, and that would be the funding mechanism that they would use to build the world government, the new world order, right? So it's like you read the books and you go, and people go, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. And you go, I'm reading their book. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, I can't, they wrote it. They're the ones saying that this is what the plan is, so it's like, you just kind of hang them with their own words, and the World Economic Forum and the Club of Rome and the United Nations are all working together to create a one world government. And it's not my opinion about it. It's they talk openly about it all the time. And so I think that like when we're talking to people, the first level of people that come to this, they don't even they can't even understand, they can't wrap their head around that concept. But then once you get used to it, you see like, oh my God, like these groups are extremely dangerous. Like what the United Nations is up to is removing your, I just had Whitney Webb on, and we were talking about this United Nations Sustainable Development
That
Goals.
episode was dope for everyone. Go check it out.
It
Podcast.
was. Yeah, we got into what the United Nations wants, man, and it is not good. So, you know, they're uniting nations, all right, into a one world government. That's what they want to do. So, and their sustainable development goals is nothing short of global communism.
I want to ask a big question because this is very relevant. How does what the World Economic Forum want match with what China and the One Belt Initiative wrote? Are they along the same lines? Is the One Belt Initiative, One Belt Road, World Economic Forum 100%?
No, I mean, no, I would say that they're relatively separate. There's not a whole lot of overlap between those, because the One Belt One Road is looking to challenge the dollar, and the World Economic Forum is not. So that's sort of the differentiator there.
So is there a big split right now in the world with? Okay.
Yeah. There's this Belt and Road Initiative component that's OPEC, OPEC plus.
Yes, China just made a pact with some of the Pacific countries.
Yeah, they've made some deals in Africa. They've been making deals with Saudi Arabia. I just did an episode that came out today about the Saudi Arabian situation, and they've been partnering up with China quite a bit. So there's definitely a splitting going off right now. This China-Russia centric thing, and it's.
Let's talk about this for a quick second.
Yeah, man. It's the United States' fault for it. They're so stupid. They and NATO. What they did with Russia, that forcing the sanctions on them, backfired, because it forced Russia into tighter relationships with other countries like China and India. And Russia sells quite a bit of oil. They're the number 2 producer of oil in the world. So they sell a lot to India already, but after this, they increased their exports to India by 22 times, not 22%, 22 times more oil to India than they did before. All of a sudden, it started going on sale. So Russia started making deals with all kinds of countries, started talking to Iran about how to get around U.S. sanctions. And the next thing you know, Russia's doing just fine. They backed their ruble with 5,000 rubles to a gram of gold. So it's a gold-backed ruble now. There you go.
Shout out wine.
Nice.
Wine. It's the best.
So Russia's in good shape after all of this. And a lot of the countries around the world are looking at the United States and they're saying, I don't know if I really want to do business with you anymore, because of the way you treat countries. The fact that you lock them out of the SWIFT banking system, you slap sanctions on the countries that just don't do exactly what you say, like Venezuela and Cuba, and you hold a grudge like you have with Cuba. Like, I think a lot of countries are just like, who needs this headache from the United States? I'd rather do business with China or Russia. Or, I might not agree with China's policy, but at least they don't give me a hard time. At least they don't at least they don't threaten to not pay me or seize my bank accounts or freeze my assets or take all my oligarchs' boats or start World War fucking III. You know what I mean? At least they don't do that. That's what America does. So there's a pulling away from America to the extent that they can. But this is a dangerous move because America is like a drunken idiot at 3:00 in the morning waving a gun. You know what I mean? You want to get out of that room, but you don't want to move too fast or he's going to shoot you. And so, like, if you're India and you're Saudi Arabia, you need to be very careful when dealing with the United States because the United States is dangerous. And Saudi Arabia knows it. And they're making these deals with China and India and Iran and and so it's like, holy shit. It's happening. They're starting to consider the petro yuan, like this would have never happened before. So like, you're seeing a pulling away from the dollar. And if you do that, and if you get enough people to stop believing in the dollar and it loses its world reserve status, you can collapse America. And so America should actually be very careful of how they treat China and Russia and these countries, because what they're doing is in the end going to seal their own doom, because China and Russia are going to go around the dollar and crash America. And America will have nobody to blame for doing that but themselves. The government, of course. I mean, we the people, we're the dummies that are going to feel all the pain though. But I mean, I guess it's not our fault, but it's going to be our problem.
I'm thinking if the dollar collapses, is that the perfect time for the Fed coin to come in?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's the plan, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know exactly what their plan is, but I think that if you wanted to implement a coin like that, now they've watched what's happened in Nigeria over the last year when Nigeria started to institute the Naira, I think, and it's like a CBDC that was programmable and it was their digital currency, and they rolled it out and they got 0.5% usage rate. Like nobody's using it. And then like, meanwhile, I think Bitcoin's like 35% usage inside the country. So like they're a pretty crypto heavy country, but nobody was using the CBDC. So I think that like the Fed is watching stuff like that. I think that they would be, I'm assuming that they're looking at the failures of places like Nigeria and maybe learning from that. Who knows? They're government agencies, so they are stupid. So maybe they're not learning from the mistakes of Nigeria. Hopefully they're not. I want it to fail. I do not want a central bank digital currency under any circumstances. I think that is the hill to die on, because if they can program your money, they can keep you a slave forever. Period. End of story. They can modify your behavior. They can make you not say certain things on social media. They can make it so that you don't have access to a bank account and you cannot participate in society. It is that serious. This is the real concern. I'm not worried about Russia, Ukraine. I'm worried about central bank digital currencies being implemented and them slamming the door shut on a digital prison around us. That's what I'm worried about.
So, you mentioned something earlier with Saudi Arabia. I was very interested to hear about Saudi Arabia buying the LIV tour of golf over here in America. And pretty much now
they started it. They started the LIV tour.
So we're about to start seeing a lot of these outside organizations come and try to take over what America has failed on.
It's gonna be like a garage sale where sovereign wealth funds from all over the world can come and pick through the carcass of the American empire and take whatever they want, like the Russian oligarchs did when the Soviet Union broke up. They can just pick parts of the industry up for pennies on the dollar. That's where they'd like to take it, to just collapse everything down and then come in and pick through what used to be America,
Well,
but
and this is all while the banks are just straight up robbing us through the cryptocurrencies, through all of these scams. I, they're hitting all their marks, and they're making their move in 2023. I think this episode is dire, Charlie. Speaking about the banks, do you see what do you see with JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon, all of these big banks? Do you see them continually crashing? If this is the real case for America with the dollar falling, where's your take on this?
Well, when Berwick and I wrote Controlled Demolition, we said to keep an eye on Deutsche Bank, and I stand by that. Like, I think that's the bank to watch, because it's a bank that's a deep state bank for a long time. I mean, Third Reich type shit, and it's always teetering on insolvency. It's always like, it's just like this really poorly run bank that's always on the verge of collapse. And that would be one thing if it was just a bank that was your competitor. But the problem is that all these banks have bets with one another in the form of derivatives. And so if one of the people sitting at your card game just goes broke but owes you money, then you never get the money. And so if Deutsche Bank goes down, it defaults on its derivative bets with the other party, some other bank. And then that bank starts to feel all these losses. And then one of those banks folds. And then all of the liabilities that it had on the derivative bets with the other banks start to become worthless. And it just creates a contagion, and it takes everything down. That's how these things go. They go so fast. If I don't know if you remember, but in 2008, that banking mergers, the mergers happened over a weekend. It was like Friday morning, there's talk about this, and by Monday morning, they had merged like 5 banks into 3, I think, or something like that. 6 banks into 3 or something like that. It was crazy. So it happens, and it happens fast. I always encourage people to have some of their money out of their bank account, just for practical purposes. Just get some out just in case, because these things happen really. I'm not trying to freak people out either, but I'm just saying, be
it's
like
1,000%.
Be one step ahead of this, and just next time you go, get some extra out of the ATM, and just every time you go, get some extra and have some money aside just in case. Because listen, things get bad fast, and they rewrote legislation for the banking that called for the bail in instead of bail out. So it's now legal for them to bail in, dip into your bank account, and take some of your money in order to balance the books on the banks. Okay. They don't want to do it, because once they do that, you'd never trust them again, but they can do it legally. So when they do it, they'll do it big, meaning they'll take all your money. And they'll be right to do it, because it's technically legally their money. You're
so they can target anybody from the rich to the poor with that, right? They can take out anybody's money.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, when you sign a bank account and deposit money into your bank account, it becomes the property of the bank, and you become an unsecured creditor of that bank account. So they're not taking your money, they're taking their money. And so that's what people don't really quite understand, is that if there's a situation where the bank defaults and keeps the money, you can't do anything about it. And this FDIC is going to be my backstop. They've got up to $250,000 per bank account. Absolutely, they do. If it's a regional bank, if it's a small regional bank and something goes wrong, and they can make everybody whole. If the entire banking system goes down, they don't have the money. They have 2% of what is needed to cover everybody's deposit, and that 2% that they have held back, it's invested in those shitty bonds that destroyed SVB.
I was about to mention cryptocurrency. Now, the cryptocurrency is tied in with all of this. A lot of these big companies and big CEOs, they've ripped people off. They've leaked a lot of information, caused hacks, and a lot of money to be stolen just for half of the money to be returned.
FTX, man.
And, it's interesting. FTX is very involved with all of these big wigs. Hillary, the damn zone.
Yeah. They were the ones that were running the Ukrainian crypto donation component to it. I mean, this is money laundering in the new era, in the new crypto era. They're stupid. They should be using Monero, but whatever. But they're the Fed, so they're, nobody accuses them of doing it the right way. So I don't know, man. I don't look. There's part of me. There's the writer side of me loves the craziness of all of this shit, because it's just never ending, the amount of things we can write about or talk about or whatever. But like the human being side of me, which is mostly me, I just don't like where we're headed, man. It's really negative inside the country. There's a lot of division. People are fighting with each other about crazy, stupid shit. People are very on edge. We're about to have an economic collapse. I just don't love the direction we're going, because I know it's going to be really painful. But I think for those of us that are paying attention, that are watching what's happening, we see this in advance. It's like watching a train coming right at us. We can get out of the way. That's the good news, is you can get out of the way. You can maybe get your family out of the way, but we're not going to be able to stop what's coming. It's too much of the financial system just cannot stay afloat for much longer. It's coming down. It's going to be a real mess. So it's like, do you want to be standing right in front of it, or do you want to be safely off to the side, out of the way? So like, here you are right now in the relative calm of 2023. Like, take advantage of this time and like get yourself sorted out. Get some money out of the bank, get some money into gold and silver. I'm not licensed to give financial advice, but I just think that's a reasonable thing to do. It doesn't make you a weirdo prepper or anything, right? But it just makes you sort of proactive. What's wrong with being proactive, right?
Being active and looking forward toward the future is everything that I'm about. I do have some final questions before we start wrapping this up. Look, we've talked a lot about the disruption of America. I'm just asking because I've heard a few different things. Something like Nasara and Jasara being help to America, but then also, this is gonna sound wild. I had this a little bit earlier. The UFOs and these angels and aliens. With everything that's going on, let's flip this real quick. If the World Economic Forum is really concerned about the freedom and spirituality, and they want to shut us down, they don't want us to thrive. Could this all be because there are some things that we have to our own divine right? There should be money coming to us. There should be helpers out there. Is this because they just want to destroy us, or is it because they want to kind of prevent maybe us from thriving and us living our true potential, in your opinion? This is more.
They're destroyers. You know what I mean? Like, that's sort of like, that's their mentality, is they destroy things, and we're builders. but they like to come in and destroy. See, the thing is, it's like, if you're a good person, right? You want what's best for everybody. You kind of project that onto other people, and you just assume that, like, I wouldn't do that, therefore that person wouldn't do that. But there's a segment of society that's psychopathic, and they just don't get hung up on the same things that you and I do. They don't have a line in the sand. They have no problem crossing this line in the sand. And so, like, those people operate, those people are in every society, and they're very dangerous. And those are the types of people that wind up in positions of power, because that's what gets them off. That's what turns them on, is being able to dominate people. So where do you go? You wind up in government. You wind up in banking. You wind up at the top of big business. So part of the reason why things are so screwy is because the people that gravitate to the positions of power are crazy people. Mean, psychotic, evil, awful lizard people, maybe. You know what I mean? But like the worst Nephilim. Types. The worst types of people wind up in these positions. So it's like, and on top of that, this is managed. This process is managed. The World Economic Forum has their Young Global Leader program, right? And so they grow these young global leaders like a bunch of turnips or something, right? And then when they're done, they install them in positions of power all around the world so that they can become the Prime Minister of Australia or of
Kamala Harris, Justin Trudeau.
You name it, right? So all over the place. So this is part of this is part of what's going on out there. So I think that
would we call this the government of the Antichrist? Not to get too biblical, but in some reality,
well, it's very anti-human. It's in its desires. It's 100% anti-human. So, whether people want, that, to me, that's bad enough. If people want to put the Antichrist on it, fine. I don't know that it even needs the religious component. It's just anti-human. It's just not how human beings are supposed to be treated. And in practicality, it is the removal of human beings from the planet, meaning by definition, it is anti-human. And so that this is their idea. This is this big plan, this Build Back Better. You can't, the name implies destruction when you think about it, because you wouldn't be building it back if it wasn't, hadn't gone anywhere. They have to destroy it in order to build it back better. The problem is we're in the destruction phase right now. That's why everything feels so crazy. That's why the economic system needs to come down. They want it to. That's why the social system is so screwed. Everybody's fighting, and trans lives matter, and blah blah blah, and Pride Month, and fuck you, and and like everybody's just cranked up to 11. Like, yeah, man, that's part of this plan. Like, blow it out from the inside, soften us up from a societal standpoint. Blow out the banking system, the monetary system. Bring this thing down. And from the ashes, we'll pick all these pieces out. We'll take over the telecom industry and the banking industry and this and that. And these people will become so much more powerful. Get ready for it. But we can stop them. We can't stop them. That I guess we should probably wrap up on this, because I think it's important to wrap up on a high note. And we've talked about some doomy shit for sure, but I want to make sure that people also understand this. These people might think they're gods, but they are not. Okay, they make a lot of mistakes. They make a lot of mistakes. So the idea that you're up against like unbeatable odds is not the case. If you make things difficult, if you make things, I don't know, if you refuse to comply with unjust orders, then you can throw off their timeline on all of this. And everything seems geared towards 2030. And I think a lot of people are saying, if you can throw a monkey wrench in this and throw off their timeline, then maybe you won't see this crew have the success that they want. We've already seen that over the last couple of years. We were having issues with I'm sorry, I'm hearing things outside of my house, so
That's fine.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, I got to wrap it up. I feel like there's like a windstorm going on outside of my house.
No, it's all good, man. This has been an amazing episode for all my viewers out there. Let's just give people one last message. Some sense of light. We are godly creations, and I think that if we dive deep inside of us enough with enough answers, enough prayers, questions, we just deep dives, we can really figure it out. We can find the peace. What do you have to say?
Yeah, man. It's going to be up to you. You can't outsource this to somebody else. You're going to have to be the one in charge of doing it. That's your task. You got homework. You got to do a little bit of work.
And you can.
I appreciate you having me on, man. And if people are interested, they can go catch Macroaggressions in audio format wherever podcasts are served, and in video format over at Rockfin. Or if you want to follow me, you can do so on Twitter at Macroaggression and on Instagram at Macroaggression Podcast.
Also, find him on TNT Radio Live. Dude, that is so awesome. I'm checking you out every Saturday, brother.
Thank you, man.
It's the best.
Thank you, man.
Tell him about that real quick. What is? That's something new, right?
What's that? Oh, the radio? Yeah. It's been the last 3 months, man. Saturday mornings, TNT Radio, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern. It's been fun to do live radio. My producers are great, so I love that. So check it out, and you can go over there and get it as a podcast too if you're not able to catch it live. So
it's been a pleasure, Charlie.
Thanks,
you
brother.
have a wonderful weekend, and God bless. The light is so much better than the darkness. Always. Peace out, brother. All right, guys, you heard that with Charlie Robinson. We had a blast here. Thank you guys for tuning in. I just want to say I appreciate everybody in the chat today. I wouldn't be able to do this without you. You guys keep me inspired, keep me going. And these conversations are really meant for you. I have dealt with a lot of these topics and information myself, and hearing Charlie speak today was just a breath of fresh air. He dove into a lot of stuff that was new to me, but for you guys, this is everything that you guys need to know. I understand that a lot of people just, don't hear the message the first day that it's being told, maybe like a week later, and I'm here for that. I'm here. My whole life I've loved the idea of being a messenger for heaven or whatever, messenger for life, and I've always been a trendsetter with this. What we're seeing in 2023 is a division, so a new trend is happening. That's truth, righteousness, justice, love. That is the wave. Everybody who is riding on those waves is prospering. Yes, our lives are getting better. My life over the last 3 years of fighting for truth, love, justice, righteousness, my life has got better. Let's see, social media, I've been banned a little bit more, but my life, though, my physical life at the gym, better. My mind, when I'm doing intellectual activities, better. My spirit throughout the day and throughout my night, better. My garden, better. My relationships with the world, better. So you know, you can change. We all can change. Social media doesn't really own us. It doesn't dictate us doesn't dictate who we truly are. Um, your life can get better, guys. I understand that friends, family, and even, myself over the last like 5 years and maybe a couple months, like things seem confusing mentally, like, so it may have an effect on all of us, right? It's just we can't be drowned out by all these fake things over the internet, and we got to take matters into our own hands. Like Charlie said, like I said, it's all on us, man. um we got to think, we got to ask, we got to start living, thriving, and really finding that new wave, that higher wave, that the truth, the love, the prosperity, everything. Fight for it, because a lot of people, they die for fakeness. They succumb to something that isn't real and then just ride with it. They don't love it. They aren't happy. But we cannot fall to that, guys. None of us. Your friends, your family, your dogs, your cats. Don't let them eat fake shit, because they're gonna go to the freaking vet pretty soon. Yeah, we thrive. Humans are thriving on truth and prosperity in 2023. And look, it may be a little rough when you first plant that seed of fighting for what's right. Like, let's just say eating right every day. No more fast food, no more Starbucks. Making your own food, making your own drinks. It may be a little tough to plant that first seed, but guess what? Within a couple months, you're gonna start seeing something bloom. The information that I've given you today, a lot of it, you're not gonna be able to like physically fight. Maybe some people who want to go against what they learned with Planned Parenthood and some of the things. Like, yeah, but mainly today I give you all the spiritual, intellectual tools that you needed to thrive. We're seeing it's a technological, biomedical type of control that's been happening. And it's because we're special. Humans are special, right? Humans have this spirit inside of us. Humans, we glow. We have this beautiful skin. Some of the bloodlines are very godly. They're very, like, what I mean by godly is that, like, they're very connected to God. They're very biblical, spiritual, and that isn't always liked or loved. But I just want to say, like, stay fighting for that spirit. For God. Keep on the light, guys. You know what I mean? Anyone who really believes in change, in truth, prosperity, love, God, light, righteousness, you know what I mean. And this is the message you guys need to hear. Everybody who's believing in these things, I'm all with you. I'm with you 100%. You are not alone. If you ever need anything, reach out to me, message me, talk to me, ask me any questions. I appreciate all of you guys. We're all in this together, and we will all shine and be happy together. Thank you so much for staying tuned. You guys have a great night. I love you guys. Remember, go check out all my sponsors down below. I have everything you guys need, from water ionizers, water electrolyzers, vitamins, supplements, crystals, cannabis seeds, hemp seeds, a little bit of everything. C60, Boomer Boost. So all the big companies you guys love, I got a little bit of affiliation with them. You guys thank me later. Peace out. Be blessed and be high. See you next time on the 509 Divine Podcast.